Hello, everybody. My name is Michael Steinhart, and welcome to the All Analytics Google Plus Hangout on Air with our guests, Todd Nevins, and of course, I'm co-hosted by Beth Schultz, who's our editor-in-chief. Todd is here. He's the co-founder and director of media and news at iCrunch Data, which is a site that is dedicated to data and analytics jobs and job market. So just a quick housekeeping note before we get started. A couple of you have asked about whether we are entertaining questions on the QA tab or whether we're going to be looking at the events page. The short answer is both, but the best way to do it is just to click the Q&A button and send us questions if you have any questions. Otherwise, the conversation will last approximately a half hour. And any time that a question comes up or that you have an observation or you want to add something, hit that button and send it in. But without any further ado, we're going to jump right in, and I'm going to welcome Todd. Thank you so much for coming. And tell us a little bit about the history and mission of iCrunch Data.
Michael, Beth, thank you for having me. I'm, as you said, I'm one of the co-founders of iCrunch Data. My partner and I, Ron Emery, founded iCrunch Data in 2003, and we met in an international marketing class in college, and it started from there. And then we became executive recruiters once we graduated from school. And in 2002, we recognized that there was not a site in this space. We were recruiting in the space, but there was not a job site that served back then the SaaS space. So we created iCrunch Data on about a 10-foot long dry erase board with two dry erase markers. And that's how it started, and we drew arrows and circles and squares and then brought in a developer and pointed at it and asked him if he could do it, and he said yes. And about 4 or 5 months later, we were officially live with iCrunch Data. So back then, we were specific to SaaS. We were recruiters within the SaaS space, so we were specific to SaaS, and it was pretty cool to see the first job seekers register, and even cooler to see the first paying client, which actually was Capital One back then. So it's been a pretty cool 11 years, or 11 years at this point. So since 2003 to today, and we've evolved and changed quite a bit.
So, Todd, you're kind of dating yourself there. I wonder if some of our audience members will even recognize what dry erase boards look like or mean.
Oh.
You got to talk about the electronic whiteboard these days, right?
That's a good point, Beth. Yes, exactly.
Anyways, why don't you tell us a little bit about how this whole process works? I mean, do companies post jobs on your site, or does the site aggregate postings from around the web? I mean, what happens here?
Yep, job seekers come in for free. Employers pay to post jobs and search our resume database. We've got a database just of registered job seekers of well over 100,000 now, but our audience is in the millions on a monthly basis. And employers post jobs, and then over the last 2 years, we've expanded out our media side of our business. We've got a news site that we've got a team of journalists and authors, primarily in the United States, but we've got people in Singapore and in Israel that write for iCrunch Data News, covering the latest on big data. And we also have an exchange forum, an open forum for discussions as well. But it's between our jobs and then currently our news side, and we are right now in the middle of a complete revamp and upgrade of the news side of our business.
So you're not only just collecting job data and posting it, you're actually doing research on the job market then, on the data jobs market?
Yes, the jobs that we have up are directly posted to iCrunch Data. The aggregation side of our business is the Big Data Jobs Index. And so we take data from all different types of sources, certainly our information on jobs that are posted, as well as other aggregator data to come up with the Big Data Jobs Index. That was a focus of my partner Ron's. That was his idea, and and he rolled that out about 2 years ago for us because he felt like there was a need within our community to know what was going on and certainly the trends and growth of the different sub-segments of big data.
So 2 years you've been researching big data jobs specifically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, specifically as the big data term became more and more frequently used. Since '03, we've evolved from SaaS to then analytics and business intelligence, and then we never would have guessed in '03 that we would be in the middle of a big data storm that we're in right now.
All right, that's really fascinating. And if you look at the index, which I put up on the screen a couple of minutes ago, but I'll put it up again, it looks as though the jobs are broken down by analytics, big data, business intelligence, data science, software development, and statistics. Is there a lot of overlap between those categories, and which ones are the hottest ones?
Yeah, we try not to have overlap. It is a dynamic index that updates every night, so those numbers change daily. And big data is certainly the big umbrella of it, and then the smaller sub-segments, data science and business intelligence. Our development team does their best to cut down on overlap so they are as accurate as they can be, and certainly that's been changed and worked on quite a bit since we've rolled it out. But we're confident in the numbers now. But you know what? This is a dynamic industry, so a statistician today might be a little bit different in a year. So there's a lot there that just things change.
You know, I was going to ask, because there is so much confusion around titles for different big data and ordinary data and analytics jobs. You know, those titles are constantly evolving, but do you think there's a need for the industry to standardize around different job titles, you know, data analyst or data scientist, informatician, whatever it might be? Would that help job seekers and hiring managers really find the people that they need to find?
Tremendously, and we do see that evolving as big data is becoming a term that some people are tiring of, but the big data space is definitely becoming more granular, more defined, both from a job seeker perspective, but mainly a job title perspective. So that makes it much easier for people to find one another, employers to find job seekers. If you ask 10 people what's a data analyst, you might get 10 different answers or 6 or 7 different answers, but it's getting better and better. But yes, to answer your question directly, for sure, and we certainly foresee that happening.
So let me just ask a follow-on to that. Are you doing any sort of, you know, as the jobs come in, are you doing any sort of weeding out or refining of the job descriptions, job titles, so they match up with your database, or are you just letting them come in and let them stay as they are?
No, we have what are called keyword tags, and it's a very specific area for this exact reason. When employers post jobs, they put the most important keyword tags that are relevant to this job. And we take suggestions all of the time from our customers to keep that keyword tag list as current as possible. But yeah, that is exactly why we have that section on the site, to try to cut down on the confusion.
Well, it sounds as though this is, as you said, this is a rapidly evolving and a rapidly changing market. But we saw a data point last week that seems to sort of be static. The Information Week IT salary survey came out, and the authors made a point of saying that big data jobs and data scientist jobs were not included in the index yet, because the definition is so imprecise. But the data management and the analytics jobs, those titles, and several hundred respondents ticked that off in their survey. They said that their salaries have, for the most part, been flat, hovering around 90K, 95K for 2012 and 2013. Does that reflect what you've seen in terms of starting salaries, in terms of X number of years experience salaries. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, that was a extensive article. Doug Henshin had reported on that, and we are seeing some consistent numbers. As the article points out, that a couple of interesting things came out of that, that financial services and banking led the way, and their analytics teams have been around for 5 or more years, and then everyone else has kind of been since then. Right. But it also points to the fact that because of all of the advancements in analytics and the analytic tools that are being introduced, we're doing more with less. And the analytics teams are expected to do, they're more efficient because of the new tools that are rolling out to help them do more with better, more precise tools. So I thought that he made a lot of interesting points in that article, and a lot of them we are seeing some consistent trends as far as flat, but it kind of goes back to what you pointed out earlier. The definition of the different positions within this space are we're continuing to define them. So hopefully next year we'll have a little bit more data on that.
Well, that's actually a good place to do a follow-up, because in the over the last couple of months we've spoken to people at University of North Carolina, Tennessee State, various other schools that have analytics programs. And the numbers that they're showing are actually completely, sort of different from, completely different from the numbers that, the salaries that we're seeing. So, the starting salaries in the 90s, experience salaries in the mid-hundreds. Does your site actually break down salary ranges? And do you have
not yet. We do not. We do not break it down yet, but that is definitely on the table. As far that's the total, and then the salaries. That's a big hot button. So that's in the works, but not yet.
Okay. Well, we'll definitely keep an eye on that.
Yep.
Todd, I wanted to follow up on that point you made on being able to do more with less, because we've heard so much about the demand for analytics talent. But as we do see these tools get more and more sophisticated, can we almost see then that there might end up being a slowdown in hiring rather than a picking up of hiring in the future?
Certainly the data says no. 4.4 million IT jobs worldwide will be new IT jobs worldwide will be supported by big data will support 4.4 million IT jobs by next year, 2015. 1.9 million of those in the U.S. and over the next 4 years, 190,000 analysts will be at a shortage, and 1.5 million managers. So.
And are those the McKinsey figures?
Yes, exactly. So those numbers are telling us no. That they're saying no, and from what we see, and certainly the Big Data Jobs Index, we crossed the 500,000 jobs mark specific to the Big Data Jobs category about 30 days ago, and I mean we haven't looked back, and that was the first time that we crossed that mark a month ago, and we're climbing.
Okay.
So it sounds as though things are going strong. And a question actually came in from the audience. This is from Vivekananda Rao, and it actually ties into one of the questions that we had on our initial list. Where do these jobs hash out geographically? Are we looking at U.S. jobs, overseas jobs, both? And A, what's the prognosis, and B, what's the breakdown?
Okay. The United States is leading the way, and certainly Silicon Valley is number one. Outside of the United States, we're seeing Israel is really growing. The UK and India. We actually, within the last week, we brought on as a client Booking.com out of the UK and Lonely Planet out of the UK, hiring in the UK for analytics positions. So so we're seeing a global growth in the hiring of these folks. But within the United States, Silicon Valley, and then New York, and then the medium-sized cities like Salt Lake City and certainly Austin and Seattle.
Okay. And is there like a percentage breakdown that we can look at in terms of, I mean, are there going to be more jobs moving overseas, you know, say 3 to 5 years down the road?
I don't know. I'm not sure on that. There are a lot of really interesting startups, and there's an article this morning about all of the data startups coming out of Israel, and that is a dominant market, and so I would expect it to broaden out globally, and certainly with the startups coming out of those tech hotbeds. It's going to be really, really interesting to see over the next 5 years. And some people are saying that Silicon Valley has lost a little bit of its luster, whether it's home prices or whatever it may be. But not everyone wants to move to California, and there are other tech and big data hotbeds that you can move to with a better cost of living and quality of living than living in California, and certainly there are plenty of people that are moving from the United States over to Berlin, to London, to Tel Aviv, because there's a lot going on over there.
And you know, the younger data professionals have the kind of ability to move around, go where the excitement is, go where the action is.
Exactly. The younger folks, they may not have a family yet. They may not have a home that's purchased yet, and they're nimble and ready to go. And that's exactly who those companies are attracting.
Great. Another interesting question came in, going back to the discussion that we were having about standardizing around specific titles and job descriptions. Definitions and standardization are exactly the wrong things for a rapidly changing field. We, the people who do the heavy-duty analytics work, don't like being put in pigeonholes. Never have, never will. So
love it.
Right, and that speaks to the creativity and the drive and the passion and the ability to balance 8 or 9 different disciplines at the same time, which is what we want to see, or what the industry wants to see, what enterprises want to see in next-generation data professionals. But how do you hire for that? How do you have a description for that? Have you seen any kind of creative or interesting ways for the companies go about getting somebody who encapsulates the summary that we just heard?
Yeah, that's a great point, and we have seen just within the last 6 months or so the increase of the word curiosity on a job description. How do you define curiosity? How do you interview for curiosity? How do you recruit for curiosity? But I think that question points specifically to that, and it also points back to maybe the salary leveling off currently. If someone is challenged and given the opportunities to explore new projects, to get trained on new cool tools, to expand, they're curious to learn and grow about different things within the space, and that's most of the time going to trump the salary. And so that point is great. I don't want to be called a statistician because I'm more than that. That might be what my degree says I am, but I don't want to be called just that, because I could do so much more, and I'm so much curious about other things. So therein lies the confusion, the overlap, and the difficulty in recruiting and finding people within this space. It's an ever-changing, ever-growing space, and that's a great point. And I think a lot of people in this space feel that way.
It's funny you mentioned curiosity, because I was going to ask. I mean, we've heard the International Institute for Analytics, for example. They tell us that creativity and curiosity are kind of the hallmarks of the analytics professional. So I was going to ask, are those coming up in resumes that you see? Are you using those as keywords even at this point?
Yeah, we're not using them as keywords because it'd get chosen every time.
Yeah, right. Well, doesn't
yes.
Christina?
Yeah, we are seeing them in, as I said, in the job descriptions, and certainly resumes are following suit. And my advice for anyone that is putting together a resume, just saying I'm curious is not going to cut it. Examples. Please provide examples of ways that you were creative, what you did outside of the norm. And not only what you did, but what was the result? What was the ROI? Was it an improved customer service, increased revenue, decreased customer service phone calls, whatever it may be? If you're worried about putting that on your resume because of confidentiality reasons, put on percentages. Put on something that not just, I'm curious, but here's why, here's what I did, and here was the result. That's the key.
That's
Thank you. Another question came in, and this is more about what the specific skill sets are showing up in different job descriptions and different requests. Based on what you're seeing in the need for technology, how do the platforms used to prepare data for analysis break out between analytics tools like SAS, traditional relational database technologies, and Hadoop?
That is a question I cannot ask that, or I can't answer that question. That's a really detailed question that I don't have enough data for at my fingertips. But that's an awesome question. Okay.
But I'm saying, like, those are keywords that show up in the various descriptions that are posted on the site, right?
All the time. All the time. But we don't have the trending. That would be a more of a granular take to add to the big data jobs index with salaries would be the more specific categories that would be right in line with that question. And that would be the next evolution of the big data jobs index.
So if nothing else, the audience that's here is actually helping create the next iteration.
For sure. Which that defines our business. Like, that defines exactly where we're at. It's exactly how we've upgraded our business over the years was from suggestions from our audience.
That's great. And I just want to take a moment to thank everybody in the audience who's watching some really insightful and helpful questions. And I think that with that, we want to turn to the job seeker and focus on that person.
Right. I think that's a good place to go too. And Todd, I know you started giving a few tips, but let's look at what advice you have for younger professionals just coming into analytics. Maybe they've just graduated this spring or working on their degrees and they're coming into the field. And then secondly, what advice you have for those folks who have been in data professions for a while? I mean, what do they need to do to brush up on their skills? What do they need to make themselves more marketable?
Mm-hmm. Okay. First question, advice for younger folks coming right out of school. It feels like an unlimited number of options with conferences, with summits, with boot camps. We're media partners. 2 years ago, in 2012, we were media partners with about 5 or 6 of these conferences or summits around the United States. Last year, we made it one of our initiatives to expand those partnerships with conferences out there because it fell right in line with our audience and the question of what do I do now that I'm not right out of school. So last year we were partnered up with about 20. This year will be over 60. So that number has drastically expanded, not only because we've made it more of an initiative to partner up with them, but because there are so many of them. And certifications, SAS was the leader in setting up their SAS certification years ago and have expanded upon that. So SAS certifications are great, but there are many others out there, and we've just partnered up this morning with one out in California. It's a 3-day intense boot camp on all different types of big data categories, and at the end of it, you are certified through that organization. So there are a lot of different certification options to add to, not just add to your resume, but just add to your experience, your background, your networking, all of that. Some of them are even online, and so you don't have to travel. You don't have to go through the expense or ask your employer to send you out there. There are plenty of webinars to get involved in that can help expand your experience. As far as experienced professionals, the same goes to them. Is it time to go back to school and get a master's degree in analytics? If you've been in the workplace for 5 years or more, when you were in school, that probably wasn't an option. North Carolina State was on the forefront of a master's in analytics back in 2007. Their program is open to people that want to roll right into it right out of a bachelor's degree. And right now, Michael, I think you pointed to it earlier, that they're saying that there's a 90% placement rate at a salary at just under $100,000 for people coming out of the Masters in Analytics programs at NC State. On the flip side of that, universities are rapidly changing their curriculum to help feed the industry with people with analytics experience. Texas A&M, on the other side of that, has just rolled out a program just this past fall, and they require 3 years of experience. They do not let someone come in right out of college. They want the person to be a working professional. That's part of the requirement of the program, is that you're a working professional within this space. And they've even gone a step further, where the program is all online. The only time the students need to be present is one time at the very end, beginning of the semester, and one time at the very end of the semester, and the rest of it is all virtual. The physical location is in Houston, not on A&M's campus, which is in College Station. It's a little bit tougher to get to, but the physical location of the classroom is in Houston. But they're catering to not just people in the United States, but also Canada and Mexico, because it's virtual. And it does cater to the working professional that's already out there, but wanting to go back, and it's a 5-semester program, and they end it with a master's in analytics.
All right, so it sounds as if there are a lot of different options available, both in terms of, as you mentioned, short-term certifications and sort of boot camps and refresher courses, and also the larger scale master's degrees programs. We're approaching the half-hour mark, but I'm really excited about how many questions are coming in from the audience. So if you have a couple minutes, let's take a couple more. Is that okay?
Let's do it.
All right. So one question that's come up, and I love the ranking system, by the way. Different viewers can upvote the questions that they like the best. So we're going to go with those. Is there a difference in terms of demand for staff level or management level data professionals? Do you have any kind of breakdown information about the rank of the data professionals we saw?
Yeah, as far as a specific breakdown, no. But we are seeing the management level positions becoming more and more common, and their experience needs to be a lot more diverse. They need to be able to get in front of the board, get in front of the C-level executives, and get in front of a team of people that are not analytical and speak analytics. And certainly with the data visualization tools that are coming out, it's becoming a lot easier. But that person is not just a stereotypical analytics person that enjoys sitting in front of the computer and crunching data. That's not what they're looking for in the management level professionals. They need a wide range of skills, from getting in front of a team of analysts or data scientists or executives and be able to speak across that entire range, and even get in front of salespeople that are out there on the front lines, and they have a basic level of understanding as far as what the products are. But they're not the ones that are crunching the data. So they've got to wear a lot of different hats and have the ability to lead and motivate and hire and recruit people for their team. those are becoming pretty tough to find and extremely valuable.
All right, let's do maybe two more. This one goes back to the master's degree programs that we were talking about. Is the market valuing the Master of Science or Master of Analytics degrees that are emerging? Sounds as though they are, especially considering the placement rates and the number of offers that are on the table for graduates of these different programs. But from your perspective, in terms of seeing the requests that are coming in and the resumes that are getting posted, do you think that that's becoming important?
Yeah. Yes. It is a trend that it's unstoppable. It is. The universities are adapting quickly, and people that have a master's in analytics versus someone that doesn't, does it mean that they're definitely going to get the job? Absolutely not. Experience and ability wins all. Ability wins all. So that being said, if you're really good and you have a master's in analytics and you're up against somebody else that's really good, just like anything else, will that be enough to sway the decision to you versus the other person? Potentially, but it's not the end-all, be-all. There are a bunch of extremely talented, experienced people that have learned on the go and have been put in companies and in situations where they've been able to expand their experience in a real-world environment that are extremely valuable.
All right.
You know, Todd, we've talked to other folks, recruiters in particular, who have said, you know, these days people shouldn't bother with, well, maybe not bother with, but, you know, they should really think seriously if they were going to traditionally go ahead and get an MBA. If that was always their plan, maybe they better not do that. Maybe they better get a master's in statistics instead. That might, or a master's, you know, in analytics. I mean, that would give them more value. Is that what you find as well?
Yes. It depends on their career path. It depends on where they're headed. But if they want to get up and manage a team of analysts and data scientists in this space, and they've got a choice, an MBA or a master's in statistics or analytics, it'd be better to go in the statistics or analytics direction.
Okay. You know, one other question I think is interesting from our audience, and it sort of refers back to what you said earlier about, you know, maybe Silicon Valley isn't the hot spot anymore. And where are you then seeing sort of the hotbeds of activity in terms of data jobs? I've heard Boston is one. I've heard Atlanta is one. I'm in Chicago, and I know we've got a lot of stuff going on here. So what, you know, geographically wise, what are you seeing?
The insurance space in Chicago is really driving a lot of analytics hiring there. Minneapolis, St. Paul has been big because of the financial services footprint in Minneapolis. Salt Lake City, Utah, even Las Vegas is doing a good job of kind of changing the perception of that entire city because of the recession a few years ago. Austin remains, Dell is driving it in Austin. Another Texas city is San Antonio. Rackspace is a big company down there that's doing a lot of cool things and attracting a lot of startups and funding a lot of startups down there, and a lot of them are data related. New York City, huge. Boston and Atlanta and Charlotte has always been, because of the financial services present in Charlotte, they've always been a big one. Okay.
Excellent.
There were a couple of surprises in there, I have to say. I didn't expect to hear Salt Lake City or Vegas, for example, but you know, I could see it.
Yep. It's Vegas they've got a you know, the image of Vegas is what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So although that was a great brand a few years ago when you're trying to attract analytical talent, the impression is just casinos. So it is.
Well, they got to figure out how to optimize placement of those slot machines. That's for sure.
Exactly. Well, proximity to California, I think, is another huge driver, both in Phoenix and Las Vegas, because they're right there, and they just have to drive a few hours, and they're in Vegas or Phoenix. So that's really helping those cities.
Okay.
And that's a good way for analytics professionals to blow off some steam when
Exactly.
and 80-hour work week starts to get a little too much. But I would love to continue the conversation, but we have run out of time. I am so appreciative to everybody in the audience who came out today because we've got several questions. We'll actually gather those questions, pitch them to Todd Nevins offline, and then together we'll compile some responses and put them up on the event page. I want to thank Beth Schultz for taking the time out of her day today and joining us, our editor-in-chief for allanalytics.com. Thank you so much, Beth. And I want to thank Todd Nevins, as we mentioned, co-founder and director of media at iCrunch Data, and would like to encourage everybody out in this space because we'll be doing another one of these next month with another big data professional addressing an important topic, which will keep a surprise from you. But keep an eye on your email, keep an eye on the site, and keep an eye right here on our Google Plus Hangout page. And so on behalf of allanalytics.com, my name is Michael Steinhart, and thanks once again to all of our guests and all of our audience members.